Here is Holistic Harmony Javi, your holistic peak performance coach. Welcome to the last episode of High Vibe Live. Today we're talking about managing your multi-dimensionality with a close brother of mine, my man Johnny Restrepo, Juan Restrepo, Split Dreams. He goes by many names, but what we're going to talk about is really how to manage the aspects of yourself that you still want to explore, but maybe they don't give you money, or maybe they're not lucrative, or maybe they aren't promising. How do you manage that? How are you able to still do those things and honor that, but also honor what it is that you also have to do? So we're really looking forward to jumping on with him. Gonna go ahead and go live. Merry Christmas.
This a little late. Got my brother joining right now. There he is. He is risen. Jesucristo.
What's up, Juan? I figured in good fashion, being Christmas, I had to let the hair down. So
You gotta let the hair down, brother. You gotta let the hair down. Thank you for being here, bro. I really appreciate it, man.
for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Close out the year strong.
Yeah, man. I gotta give you a proper introduction. So for anybody that's watching this later, watching this now, Johnny is a visionary. He is a visionary in every sense of the word, somebody who I look up to when it comes to multidimensionality, being able to balance and have harmony between all the different aspects of his life, whether he's helping you bring your vision to life with creative design, whether he's helping you build your brand with your website, whether he's facilitating an amazing ceremony, whether he's coaching you through some stuff. I mean, Johnny really is a person that is able to manage all of those things in a really amazing way that has opened a lot of opportunities for you, being that you're in Mexico right now, and just the amount of people that you've connected with and just how much you've done in such a short amount of time, man. It's truly inspiring. So I want to go ahead and welcome you to the channel, brother. Welcome you to the High Vibe Live.
I'm really, it's an honor to be here, brother. I mean, I think it's long overdue, to have this opportunity, just touch on some things that you wanted to share. And I feel that just calls to everyone. I think it allows everyone to really resonate with something that gives them the possibilities and the options to reach for those dreams and not be stuck in these limiting beliefs that we're all so conditioned with. So,
Yeah. Yeah, so let's get right into it, man. So one of the things, like I said, Johnny, you're somebody who I look up to when it comes to being able to balance all of those things, and you've found the time to be able to do all the different things that you've wanted in your career, whether that's travel, whether it's work on design, and do it all throughout. But I know there wasn't a time where that wasn't really possible, and your life wasn't full of light. It wasn't full of these amazing adventures. It was kind of dark, and that's one story that has really resonated with me when you told me how it was that you rose up. And so I would love for you to tell that story, man, if you're comfortable with it, because it's such a powerful story. It resonated a lot with me, and I know that with anything that really resonates with me, I try and share it somehow, because I know that it's gonna help other people.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that. And, just to start it off before getting to the story, I think one thing I want to say is I think any opportunity, anything that you kind of reach for is just trial and error, right? We aim for the stars, and if we don't hit, we keep shooting. And from a really young age, I was a dreamer, that's just where I was stuck, hence Dream Designs. I had bought the domain, thedreamers.com, like 15 years ago, because I was always stuck in this kind of dream world, but never really had a plan in place. And I think that that's something that came in my later years. I started off with my own entrepreneurial reach, I guess, was when I started a clothing line with a few friends with no idea of how we were going to do anything, but just our creative freedom. And we all had jobs, right? So we were working, but we always found time to create. And I think that that's something that's extremely important with whatever you do. We have to pay the bills. It's something we can't really get away from, especially the system that we live in. But we always have to find time to play and play the sense of being creative, not play in the sense of just partying, which I did my there as well. But I think it's important for us to tap into the little boy or girl inside as often as we can, so that we can express those creative emotions. So that was huge for me. And I had that outlet because I always worked a lot. I started working when I was 12, and washing dishes on the weekends at a catering business. Before you knew it, I was cooking and doing everything else, but that's how it began. And for me, I was always okay with working, and I always had a little bit of money saved up. But I always found time to play sports and to do other creative things. In my 20s is when I started the clothing line, which we ran with for some years, and it didn't really pan out as we wanted. We all kind of went in our own directions. But short story, with the clothing line, my partner, when we were just about to release our production, decided to go the music route, and that was probably a hidden gem for me, because what that did was it forced me to learn design, and that was huge, right? That was like a catalyst for my career, for what I have now. So something that might have looked like the biggest downfall in my creative process and my entrepreneurship is what essentially has been the backbone for my successes now. So I think it was just perspectively looking at it and saying, okay, here's a challenge. Let's step into this. Either we give up or we try something new and we see if we can do it. And it worked out well. Before moving to the story, I do want to say, though, what I've noticed time and time again through anything that I've done is that ultimately you're the product, right?
Yeah.
People buy into you. And I think that my truth and my honesty and my intention is why there's been success in the things that I've done. People see that and they see through it too. So being able to just be authentically myself, raw in every sense, has allowed anything that I get involved with to do well, because people are supporting me, right? So that's been an incredible tool for me, and obviously learned a lot of those things in my later years through trial and error. But getting to the story, so I was living a lifestyle I couldn't afford, to say the least. I was working a lot, 40, 50 hours. And at that point in my life, I was like 40, 50 hours in the restaurant, 20 hours in design. I was putting in the work and I was making good money. But there was things I wanted to do in my life that I wasn't able to do in my younger years because of not being from a financially stable place. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do it, even if it's just scratching to get there. So for a while, I'd save up some money, I'd go on a trip, and I'd come back broke. And then I'd save up some money, go on a trip, come back broke. But I wouldn't change it for the world, because it really was culturally being exposed to so many different facets of life, so many different people, so many different living situations, allowed me to have the humility come back of really knowing where the dollar comes from and the value it has. So when I actually at one point continued this process long enough, I started being irresponsible, which I wasn't. But at this time I began to be, because I said, you know what, I still want to go there, and I'm not going to pay my rent, so I'm just going to go anyways. And before you knew it, I was 3 months behind on rent. I was about $4,800 in the hole, and I thought, okay, I'll figure this out somehow. But at the time, I was already in my 30s, and I had made a promise to myself that I would never go back home. And it was because I felt that my mom, she's my hero, she always had a safety net there for me that made me a bit comfortable, whether I knew it or not. I didn't want that anymore. I wanted to struggle. I wanted to learn the hard way, because I know that's how I learn. So I said, you know what? I'm going to have to bite the bullet on this one. I'll figure it out. And I was looking to be homeless. It looked like I was going to be living out of my car at this point. Nobody knew my situation. From the outside looking in, I was traveling the world, and I looked like everything was fine. and I was living, and you know, I have to say, I don't regret anything. I think it all served its purpose, and you know, and I am one to say, do it. If it's something that calls to you, do it, because there's a reason for that. There's more that comes from that. So I was looking to really, it was going to fall apart. And simultaneously, I'm 10 days away from eviction, right? It's like they're about to board up the apartment. Like, there's no shot. I'm about to lose everything. And I get a random phone call from a friend. And I can't even say a friend. I get a random phone call from a customer of mine that used to come to the nightclub that I worked at, and just have a beer and talk to me every Friday. And we always had really in-depth conversation. You know, he saw that I cared, and we always talked about things. So years later, he gives me a call, and we get on this call, and he's just like, I've been thinking about you randomly, you know? And he's like, I've been thinking about you. I just, you've been on my mind. How's it going? And I used to say this term all the time, head above water, because I always wanted to let people know, like, you know what, I might be going through it, but I'm always breathing, right? I'm good. And I didn't want to, I guess, show weakness, right? And that was just the mentality I had at that time.
Right.
But needless to say, he simply said, listen, it sounds like you're going through some things. Why don't you just come see me? And I'll never forget this day. It was pouring outside. It was a monsoon. Like, I could barely get to my car. Streets are flooding. They're getting closed down. Like, and I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna come right now. It's the middle of a storm. And he's like, just come see me. I want to talk to you. So I go, and I go to see him, and he runs out into the car. We start talking. I tell him again my situation, and after talking to him for a bit, and I wasn't by any means asking for anything, he reached into his pocket and he gave me all the money that I needed to pay that rent, right? $4,800. And all I can say is that in that moment, my life changed. I think you know, I've always wanted to see humanity in a certain light, but never really witnessed that. If anything, I tried to walk that path, but I can't say that I was ever exposed to it in return. So for a moment, I realized, like, this guy is willing to give me money. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know where I live. We barely talk. I don't even have his phone number till now. Like, you know, why would he do this? You know, and I got emotional. I'm crying. I'm like, bro, you don't even know me. I could walk away. You would never even see me again. I'll just keep your money. And I was giving him all the worst case scenarios because in my mind, I was like, I can't accept this. And it was crazy because he stopped me and said, do you remember when you helped me? And I said, I don't remember when I helped you. And he said, one time when you walked out of the nightclub after you closed your shift, I was standing outside and it was snowing so bad. And I was waiting for my friends to come pick me up. They hadn't been there. It had taken them forever. And you asked me, what are you doing? And I told you I was waiting for my friends. And you told me to get in the car. And you drove me all the way to my house. That was 30 minutes away. Mind you, you live 2 blocks from this location. And you were willing to go out of your way to make sure I was safe. Even though it was snowing, something could have happened. You took care of me with no question. It's like that moment will stick in my mind forever. And I've seen people in a different light because of it. And I walk a different path because of that moment.
Wow.
And you know, in that moment, I, again, more emotionally cried and thanked him up and down. And I went home with the money, and I had lawyer papers and the eviction notice all sitting on my dining room table. And I put the money on top of the papers, and I said, okay, that's it. Like, I'm never looking back after this. It's never going to be this way again. And the next day, I went to the bank. I deposited the money. I wrote on the deposit slip, which I still have to this day, the day that life changed forever, turning the page to the new chapter. And I signed it. And that check or that deposit slip has been a reminder to me every time that there's even a hiccup in my process. And needless to say, a lot of other random blessings happened directly after that. From
Mm-hmm.
new job to moving into the loft of my dreams, you know, all because of favors, all because of referral, all because of things I had done in the past or people I had helped. And I never looked back. When I moved into my loft, I was basically a squatter. I had nothing. But I wanted to be in an environment that was going to allow me to feel as if I belonged there, and I needed to, you know, you're a product of your environment. And I wanted to grow. And where I was located, I wasn't. So I literally moved in with my mattress on the floor, a dining room table that my mother gave me, a gift from an ex-girlfriend. And that was about it, and my clothes. And it was incredible because I would walk out into the hallway and see lawyers, doctors, all these very successful individuals going to work. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to a restaurant. It's okay, you know, but I'm a graphic designer behind those doors. Like, you know, I had my own limiting beliefs. But every time I would get in an elevator with somebody, I'd say, I'm here. That's all that matters. I'm at the show. Like, now it's just time to perform. And every day got better and better. And within months, I had, you know, couch, TV, cable, Wi-Fi, whatever it is, until I had a home. And it was incredible because it was all I ever wanted, right? Like I wanted to reach for this. I wanted X amount of dollars in the bank. I got there. I wanted another amount in the bank. I got there. I want another streamline of income. I got there. And I started to check all these things. And for 4 years, I was in these lofts, and I loved them. It was like, I don't think I'm ever gonna buy a house. I think I'll live here forever. That's how much I love. And what's incredible is that thanks to individuals like yourself, Javi, and the brotherhood, especially with MRM, the guidance by Monica and Sarah, and just so many beautiful individuals that I've met in this journey in the last year or two, I started to realize what really mattered, right? And it's not that those things didn't matter. They did, and they still, in some way or another, were beautiful for the time being, right? But I started to really see more about what truly mattered internally, and the moments and the memories and things of that nature that were going to be built. And so the decision to move here was made. This was also a dream for over 3 or 4 years now. A few reasons why I couldn't. You know, my mom was still living in the States. I didn't want to leave. She moved to Florida during COVID, gave me the opportunity. I wasn't necessarily working from home at that time just yet. These last 2 years, I have built that for myself. So all the pieces were kind of moving into place, as they always do. And when I finally made the decision to move here, I started to let go of these attachments, these things in which I had collected or had built for myself to show me that I had made it in some way. And there was, again, this incredible release and growth process that happened as I let go of all these things. And gifting over 70% of the things that I own was probably the most incredible thing I've ever done in my life. And I think that that's something we all need to do. I think we need to do it quarterly. I think, you know, make room for other beautiful things to come in, you know, and whether they're objects, whether they're moments, whether they're people. And now in Tulum, I'm here, and it's always been magic, and it's more magic than ever. I wake up every day, and my gratitude is through the roof, and just being grounded in this jungle and this, you know, near the water, it's just unbelievable. So it's been a beautiful process, and it's just a continuation of layers being peeled back as I grow. So.
Yeah, it's an absolutely inspiring story, Johnny, which is why I wanted you to share it. So thank you for sharing that, man. And one thing that stuck out to me was that your intention was always there from the beginning. It's just that intention kind of grew and magnified as you realized what was more and more important. And I know you were, in telling the story, you might have not seen the comments, but a lot of people were just saying, yo, Johnny's the man. He's the one to talk to. Like, he's got everything, because you left such a valuable imprint on these people's lives. And that small act of kindness that you didn't even think much about brought you that situation, which brought you all these amazing people into your life, which like set the course for that. And so it's one of those things that really remind us all to never downplay any act of kindness, no matter how small, because you never know how it's going to affect somebody. He said he moves completely different within his life off of that one small encounter. And for you, it was like, just get in the car. I'm going to drive you home. It's snowing. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? But that's just how you're built, And I think that's a big part of acknowledging, bringing it back to the theme, just acknowledging your multidimensionality and understanding that we don't have to be a one-track kind of thing, because one-track person or a one-track mind have that, because I'm sure as you left, you had just, finished your shift. Like you said, you probably wanted to go home. And if you would have had that one-track mind, like, I just got to go home so I can do this and wake up. But like, you left the opportunity, you left it open for something, for a miracle to happen for him.
Yeah.
And that is what kind of set along the path. So I want to dive into, thank you once again, bro. I want to dive into just like how we balance, how we find harmony between these things, maybe the difference between them. Like, maybe you can think of a time in the past where you were maybe juggling or balancing all of these things, and how that feels different than now, having the harmony between your coaching and your design and where you're living. And, let's talk a little bit about that, bro.
Yeah. I do want to say one thing to bring it back to the, I guess, the intention or the way that I am. I was raised in a Catholic church. I can't say I'm religious. I believe that there's a higher being. I believe in universal connection. But with that being said, being told the story of Jesus and things of that nature for so long, I always wanted to walk in his light, regardless of what he is or who he was. It was to just be human, right? Like, I think that that's really what it comes down to. And what I realized too is that through our action, through our being that way, it allows others to do the same, right? People fear this kind of, like, if they do it, they'll be burned. Like, but the minute that you're willing and you're courageous enough, you're strong enough to do it, even if you will be burned, that is what attracts others to do the same. And I've noticed that. And it's not my intention to do it as a lesson. I do it naturally because it's all I know. But I think that one starts to start that way, and then when they realize that being human is a natural thing, that's when the magic happens. So going to what you said, how to balance all of it. What I would say, just to give a little background story, I grew up, I was a very introverted individual when I was younger. I was expressive, but a bit quiet. And music allowed me to evolve. That's why I pay homage to music so much, because it is like my first teacher, right? Like, it's my sensei, it's like it's my Mr. Miyagi, like I can't let go of that. Now, I might have new teachers that are a lot more advanced, a lot more, in different facets, but I can't forget where I come from. And music has always been that kind of the leading the way. And it was hard for me because I would catch myself in the middle of nightclubs having these in-depth conversations with strangers. And I always knew that I wanted this kind of like life. I wanted to be of service. I wanted to help. And so I wanted to be human. Like, I just wanted to be of service in some way. And the more that this happened through time, the more I realized, like, this is what I'm going to do one day. But I'm still here. And I'm not sure that this really fits the mold of that person, right? So I had to go through my process. I had to go through it. And I think that one thing that's extremely important is, self-judgment. It's something that we need to avoid as often as we can. We often get caught up in judging ourselves for every move we make. If I eat a piece of pork, I'm like evil. Like, it can't be so much judgment. And I didn't judge myself. I allowed myself the moments where I grew 6 months and then I fell back in. Okay. And then I grew a little bit, and, and just giving myself that space to allow it to be harmonious. Like, it has to be something that isn't forced. It has to be fluid, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, Bruce Lee said it best, like, be water, you know, and, and I won't say the whole thing, but it's just, you know, I've learned that that was the only way to approach all things, is to be as malleable as I could be with every situation. And I grew more into myself. I dug deeper with myself, and I realized that the music served its purpose, but it no longer serves a purpose really where I'm headed. And more than that, to be a leading example, right? It's good. I could talk the talk all day, but if I'm not going to lead and walk in that light, eventually it'll catch up to me. And I'd rather not, you know, and that's why there's a lot of different moving parts in what I'm doing, from the group coaching program to one-on-one coaching, to wanting to write a book, to still doing design. And I think design and like even the coaching now go hand in hand, because I feel that creative expression is just as important as anything else. So I'm tying those things together, right? So I don't really have to lose sight of anything. And I think that that's also extremely important, that we realize that we're infinite beings. That means we have the capability to do 100 things if we really want to. Now it really comes down to time management. How much can you actually do? Because it's not the talent that's not there, or you know, the ability, it's the time. So knowing that you have limited time, you need to choose what's most important.
Exactly.
And for me, what's most important is being of service. Right? It's at the top of the list, because it's not about me, it's about how we can all grow off each other, right? So that's the ultimate. And then creativity, I think, is also extremely important. But my creativity can go from design to photography to dance. That's my creativity. So I don't need to be put in a box, right? So when artists feel like, you know, I'm a singer, but you know, I write too, or they don't want to do too much. No, you can do it all, and it's perfectly fine. And you can be great at all of it, you know, but it's going to be where you focus that's going to allow you to really grow, right? The amount of time you're going to invest into that one thing. So for me, finding the harmony was really just being malleable, being fluid to the idea that if today I want to create, I will. And if today I want to step into 10 client calls and coach, I'll do that. And you know, but still also having the discipline and the structure in place so that you do get things done as well in that process. And that's the biggest challenge, you know, being an entrepreneur. People look at it as like, oh, you know, it's my business. But I will tell you firsthand that it's one of the hardest things to do, because you then manage yourself. And if you realize that in one day you made a couple $1,000s, you might not want to work for a few days, because you did good. You know, like you did a lot better than you did last week. You're fine. And I think that was the biggest challenge for me, was saying like, let me give myself the same workload every day, every week, and see how I can grow continuously and how much more I can stack in without overwhelming myself, which I've been at that point as well. But again, going back to that harmony and being clear on what you can and cannot do. So my new best friend is no, you know, like and it's something that we've discussed, but my new best friend is definitely being able to not feel the need to have to help everyone, and then biting off more than I can chew, and then hurting everyone in that process. So being able to say no, you know, bowing out, you know, gracefully, and allowing that process to happen in its own.
Yeah. And I've seen that growth firsthand, man. So it's really inspiring to see and witness. I think when it comes to managing your multidimensionality, a big part about it, which was implied, but I would love to just like hammer the point home, is patience. Is really having that patience, because there's something called the 10,000 hour rule. So whatever you spend 10,000 hours on, you'll basically become a master or an expert within that field in the world. Now, what that equates to is roughly 40 hours a week for 5 years straight. So if I want to play the violin and I dedicate 40 hours a week for the next 5 years, by the end of those 5 years, I'll be probably the best violin player in the world. It's very likely. It's like a rule that you can apply to really pretty much everything. But here's the thing, we might not have those 40 hours to dedicate, because we have to work 40 hours to pay the bills, you know, to keep food on our tables, to give us these vacations. So it can be hard to do that. But then that's where the reframe, understanding that those 10,000 don't necessarily have to happen in 5. If you dedicate
let's say you turn it to 10, so it's 20 hours a week. And now you do 20 hours a week. In 10 years, you can be the best. But it's about that consistency and being patient and understanding that it's going to take its time and being okay with it, because it's about the journey. And whenever you get there, you'll kind of get there. But that only really happens until you fall in love with the process. And that was something that you did very well with the design. Like, it wasn't just, okay, let me crank out a flyer for somebody. It was like, how can I get this like amazing thing that happens up in this space when information comes in, and I dream all of this and I can see it? How do I get that on a page in a way that it excites me, that excites them, and that also attracts the attention of those that that person wants to serve? And that doesn't happen until you fall in love with that process.
100%.
So I would love to talk about that, man. Fall in love with the process. I think that's like the biggest key.
Yeah, of course. I mean, listen, when I started designing, it was the most frustrating thing I ever did in my life. You know, I didn't know anything about it, and my partner at the time was an animal. Like, you know, he was just, it'd take him seconds and he'd create a masterpiece. So I was extremely frustrated, because I'm somebody that, I'm spoiled in some ways, right? Like, as a young kid, I was just naturally athletic. So I'd pick up a ball, and, you know, before you knew it, I had a starting position. I'm like, okay, I'm good. You know, and it didn't really take much effort, right? And challenging myself, which, you know, now is what I do, right? I step into fear. But at that time, I was extremely frustrated. And for years, honestly, I was really not creating the best, you know, work. It was just very average, you know? And I would tell you, like, even to this day, if you see my like flyer, my ad, I guess, it says, I'm not a designer. I'm a visionary who likes to design. Like, uses a program. Like, simply, I wouldn't call myself a graphic designer, because those people have put in that time, have gone to school, know the program. I'm more of like a photo manipulator, but I have vision, and I know what I see. So it's just a matter of kind of manipulating it until I create that, right? And I didn't get good at that, so maybe 4 years in, 5 years in. So I would say that you're 100% on point. You know, like, I think I was putting in 40 hours a week, but then I was doing like 10 to 20 in design. So like, I was getting that time in. Now I'm like, what, 9 years design? So that makes sense. Now it's a business. So, you know, for me, you're 100% right in saying that it was patience, right? It's like, if I stopped when I was frustrated from the very beginning, I wouldn't be living the dream.
Yeah.
You know, like, I literally am living the dream in which I manifested in my mind 4 years ago. And it's incredible to know that it was all based off the fact that I leaned in to something that was extremely frustrating. And so patience has been 100% one of the most important things. And I would say that I thought I lacked patience in a lot of ways, and maybe in other areas of my life I do. But I would agree with you that I can't say I looked at it that way until now, that patience has been a huge part of that. And to know that I even had it for that, it kind of like reassures the fact that it's there, right?
Yeah.
Pull from that for other things. So yeah, patience has been a huge factor for sure.
I mean, it's such a big thing, man, because I remember I'm in the same boat, Johnny. Like, I'm living my dream that I thought about years ago, and now being able to fly here, go there, got the apartment, could go stay a month somewhere, and like business as usual. Like, it's amazing, but there were times where I was sitting in the dark on a laptop creating a document that nobody was going to pay for, but it was just going to help me on this process of doing something. So like, so much work and so many hours had to get put into Google Drive and Google Docs where I didn't see any sort of return on it. It was just like, yo, this is just the next step. I don't know how this is going to manifest into being that, but this is just the next step, and I'm going to do it. And I think that people might lose sight of that, because at the end of the day, what we see are the highlights. Like, yo, this is what's happening. They don't really see, people don't see the work that we put in while we're in the trenches. So I try and make it a point of doing that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's crazy, because I talk about that so often, you know, and obviously everybody does, you know, you don't see the work, you don't see the struggle, you don't see the blood, sweat, and tears. And I think that, you know, even you and I talked about it recently, where you know, where you were going through your process right now, and it's like, I think it's important for us to share that, you know what I mean? It's important for us to share, you know, shed a little light on the areas that were really hard, You know what I mean? That,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you were working 40, 50 hours a week at a regular job, and then you were
Right.
coming home and losing sleep and maybe getting 2 hours of sleep in before your next shift because you were doing work for something
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't really paying off just yet, but it was
Right.
just invested time, right? Like, it's just invested time, and it was all worth it, man. You know,
Yeah, 100%. And I think making it creative, like this is the thing, we're all creative in one way, shape, or form. Whether that's cooking and creating a meal, whether that's posting on Instagram or posting on your story and using that creativity, making music, all of that, we all have that within.
Yep.
But for a lot of people, they might not feel as though they have it. And I think a big thing for me was knowing that I was expressing that creativity and then just looking for the outlets, looking for the small little channels and allowing that energy to go through me and enjoying that process, because it might not, like I may never see a dime from any of the songs that I'm making or that I'm working on or that I'm just having fun with. But as long as I'm enjoying that process, it's heightening my emotional state, raising my vibration, which is now helping me attract more. It's helping me rub off on people and in a positive way. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like being in service is more than just like, what can I do for you? But how can I embody this joy, rub that off on you? And now you start almost, following by example. It's just
Yep.
like, and that was the biggest thing, man, just seeing how it's changed. Like this Christmas versus last Christmas was completely different, just being around my family because of how I've changed. And just like, it really is embodying that which you want people to carry themselves, and then eventually they'll ask or they'll wonder or they'll want to. So it was like a big difference from like imposing to like just, hey, this is what I'm doing, and people being like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, it's also crazy because I always say, and I say this so often, I'm a firm believer that we're born to create and be of service, right? But finding a way to actually do both and create a union between the two is where, like, you know, like a singer or a
Right.
you know, a soccer player, or that's being creative and being of service, because
Right.
service of entertainment or whatever the case may be, you know, or emotion, you know, whatever that is. So I think having that union between the two and knowing that even if your music isn't going to go anywhere, what I will say is the fact that you're doing it while still balancing everything else that you're doing is the inspiration, right? It's
Exactly.
what allows others to feel, oh wow, like there is a way to find like the harmony between the two, you know, to have an ability and the time to find time for all these different things, right? And I think that's the biggest takeaway from just allowing yourself, like my page doesn't even show I design.
Yeah.
Nobody would even know I'm a designer unless it said it in the context, right? And
Yeah.
and even there, they don't really know what that means. You know, there's my close friends for the most part, but I still have people that I've known for 10 years that they're like, what are you doing in Mexico? Like, what are you doing for work? And I'm like, oh, I'm a graphic designer. I've been a graphic designer for almost 10 years. They're like, no way, I never knew it. I need your help. Like, so
Boom.
it's like, you know, that's also my fault that I'm not promoting that. But it's because, again, I've allowed this fluidity in my life that I don't want to overconsume, right? Like,
Right.
I was a dancer, like in the club scene when I was a kid, and I probably could have taken that somewhere in some ways. And I remember when I was given this opportunity with this huge dance company that travels the world, and they'll dress up in outfits and dance at all these places, and it was something I was like, yes, I would love to do that. And there was this part of me inside that was like, if you go, you're gonna resent, you're not gonna like to dance anymore. Because it's going to be like this thing where you have to do it all the time, where it's not a feeling anymore, it's now a job. And I think that's how I've approached pretty much all things. You know, like I won't just take things on because I need to make money. I take them on because they feel right. You know, like just like when I started design, and again, just to rewind a bit, when I started to design, I was designing for my clothing line, but the clothing line we dropped off after like a year, let's say. But I kept designing. So I started designing flyers for nightclubs, etc. But when I started to design as terms of like freelance for my company, I was working with low-level companies that had no capital. And I was doing work for them because I believed in them and I wanted to help them with their brands. And that's been the number one reason why I have a business now. Because I did it because of the what I felt in my heart, what was right. and later on those people created their businesses and then passed it back, right? And it's been that relationship ever since. So I think, again, it always goes back to just being human, right? Like, you know, if you were in that situation, like, what would you want someone to do for you? You know, and it's really as simple as that. You know, I think. Sorry, I spun backwards, but you could go ahead and take it to.
No, you're good, brother. You're good, because honestly, that's such an important piece, is the relationship aspects, because that is such a. So I'm reading this book. It's called It's a book for creatives. It's a book for creatives. The Artist Way is what it's called. And it says to, in the beginning, while you're nurturing your inner creative, whether that's singing, dancing, you know, whatever it is, whatever that creative outlet is, to be very just careful with who you share it with, and you know, because that, while it's still like being nurtured, while you're still getting to the point where you feel confident in doing it on a big scale, you got to be careful with who you bring it to, because if they are coming from a place of projection and maybe they don't believe themselves to be creative, they might be comparing you to Beyonce with your little gift that you're just like coddling and getting ready. And they'll be like, oh, no, you're never going to make any money with that. You're never going to blah, blah, blah. Immediately gets shut down. It shuts down your confidence. Now you don't want to be creative anymore. So it's one of those things that you kind of coddle, keep it to the side. A great example. Are you familiar with Donald Glover? He's also known as Childish Gambino.
Yeah.
So Donald Glover is one of the people that I really look up to when on the topic of multidimensionality, because this is somebody that's a stand-up comic. He's an amazing artist and singer. He's also a great like comedy writer. Like he wrote for shows like 30 Rock, Community, actor, you know, all of these things. And to the outsider looking in, they might see that all of these things are just happening at once. He just released an album. Oh, he was on Atlanta. Oh, you know what I mean? He just wrote for this show on 30 Rock. But the thing is, it definitely wasn't like that. It wasn't that he picked one thing and then that was it, but he had his bread and butter, so to speak. And the other things he did on the side, and he kind of coddled until it got to the point where he was comfortable kind of sharing that. So at first, if no one's really familiar with his career, he started with just writing on shows. He's writing on 30 Rock and just writing, which is a pretty low level. I mean, it's big to get to a point like that, but I'm sure beforehand he had all these little steps that got him to that point. But he hadn't released any music yet. He was just kind of doing that on the side. And that's one of the things that I really like try and do. Like for me, my bread and butter is my coaching business, like my level of service. But on the side, I'm still developing that artistry and that music, because eventually it's going to come the time where it's just like that's presentable. Like I could present that at that bigger stage and it gets accepted. But in the meantime, it's kind of like a little pieces here and there kind of private thing for myself. But it's one of those things that when we think about managing that multidimensionality, having something that's really important, that takes that priority, that you can pour most of your attention, your focus, have fun with it, create this process that you enjoy, and then on the side, still finding time, like you said, making time. Making time is the biggest one. I don't even want to say find time, making time to flesh that out at whatever pace feels comfortable.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's an hour every day at the end of the day, maybe it's an hour every week, but whatever really feels comfortable. Or maybe it's like 3 hours one day and then 1 hour. It's just the constant, like, let me keep moving forward. Let me keep taking a step. Like, let me keep learning the guitar, playing 3 chords. And now I learned 6. Like that whole thing, which I think is a really important part of this whole process.
Like consistency, right? It's just consistency is key. Like, you know, just have to be like, stay at it. Don't like play the guitar and wait 6 months. Like, give yourself that hour every week. It's just an hour. You know what I mean? You don't have an hour, give it half hour. You know what I mean? Like, just till you get to that point where there's this comfort with the instrument. And now, after a few months, you're playing music in that hour. You're no longer learning chords. Like, you know, now you're actually playing music. So I agree. Like somebody like that, or like a Jared Leto, or like, you know, these guys, like, you know, singer and incredible actor, and, you know, or these guys that are actors and movie writers. Like, and it's beautiful now to see, you know, a lot of these different artists, actors, or even, you know, athletes stepping into so many different facets of like what they are. And it allows everyone to feel like, oh shit, I can do it too. Like I don't have to just do one thing, you know, like, and I think that that's huge. And it really starts right with with the ones that are being watched, let's say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe in some way or another, on a smaller scale, we have an audience of a couple hundred, a couple thousand, and they have a couple million. They're going to make a larger impact, so it's important for them to kind of pave the way, you know,
Have their time, right?
start that process so everybody sees that it's possible. But once they start to see that, now it's everybody's trying it, you know. Whereas before it was like, have one job, that's all you do. You go to work every day, you have this one job, don't think about nothing else. You're going to come home, you're going to eat dinner, and you're going to go to sleep. The next day you're going to go back to that one job, you know. And seldomly there'd be an individual who went home and maybe played an instrument. But it was like, you know, it was like, stay focused, because if you don't, you're going to lose your job. Like now it's like, now it's almost so open that people are like, oh, I'm going to do 40 things and then forget the process of actually finding the time to do it all, or making the time to do it all.
Right.
So,
yeah. No, that's a good point, Johnny, because I think at the same time we have to be mindful of overcommitting and biting off more than you can chew, like you said, which is something that tends to happen to myself. I know it happens with yourself, so let's go ahead and extrapolate and just say entrepreneurs, let's say creatives, you know, we end up doing a little bit more than we can manage. And with that, it's an ebb and flow. It's a feeling kind of thing. Like everybody, you just have to really surrender to your own process, I think is the biggest thing. Like understand that whatever's being placed in front of you is really to help you grow and get to that point. That's why I love the movie. Have you seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire?
Yeah,
Johnny?
love it.
Beautiful movie.
Beautiful.
Because it's literally life. Like it's like he had to go through all of those things to know the answers to the questions to get his $1 million. And for us, our $1 million is our dream life that we thought about when we were kids, and now we get to live it. So it's like every experience that we have prepares us for that $1 million moment. And the beautiful thing is that every moment can be that $1 million moment. It was that $1 million moment for you signing that deposit slip. It was that $1 million moment for you, you know, handing out your different things and getting ready to go to Tulum, like knowing like, man, this is going to change me forever.
And
like,
I'll say too, I'm sorry not to cut you off, but I'll say, I'm reading a book by Tony Robbins, and he makes it really simple. He says it's just deciding, right? Like that's really all it comes down to. You know, like I moved out here. Before I moved out here, people knew I was coming. They're like, you know, like, how are you doing it? Like, oh, I wish I could do it. And I'm like, no, you can. Like, maybe your circumstances are different. You know, maybe you have a family, you can't just pick up and go. But the majority of the people that were messaging me, they could do it. Like, you know, any of us can really do it. You know, it's just making the decision, right? I made the decision. And when I made the decision, 3 weeks later, I was like, wow, I made a real serious decision. And now I'm a little scared. Like, this is probably going to be the scariest thing of my life. Like, I'm going to a different country. I don't know the laws, the medicine. I don't have people around me that I know. Maybe a few. And people say, well, it's not a problem. You're going to meet a ton of people. Which, sure, that's probably going to happen. But that still defeats the idea that I've built 38 years with so many things, people, places, like, and this is all brand new. Right, so it was a bold move, but I don't regret it one bit, and I think it's unbelievable. I already see the change. My work is 30 times, my design, everything is elevated because you're a product of your environment. Like, it's important to have an environment that suits you, and you have to be able to walk out, put your feet in the ground, and actually this is a natural thing, and be around the water and the plants, and it's so important. You know, we could only do so much in our homes back home. You know, we have a concrete jungle, and we're here shoving as many plants into our home just to have a little feel of the jungle. And then maybe we could walk to a mountain and do a hike one day, but it's not like directly outside your door.
Right.
You know? And I think that is going to be the deciding factor to the successes that I have going forward. You know, I think that goes for all of us. Now, it doesn't mean if you live in an inner city that you can't be successful. No, of course not.
Right.
But I think it's important for us to also, as long as we're happy with our environment, that's all that matters. And I think that's speaking for myself, I wasn't 100% happy with my environment. I could only do so much within my home. But every time I went beyond those walls, there was this disconnect. And, you know, and now we're back here, and it's exactly where it is.
Yeah. And I think it's also understanding that environment could change at any moment. And like, you know what I mean? Like, you could be great in the jungle for the next 2, 3, 5 years, and then you're like, you know, I really want to try my hand on that island or at the desert or like Morocco, or you know what I mean? Like, just knowing that that can change, that environment can change, because I think it's important to have a safe environment, but at the same time, have it be a little uncomfortable so that it pushes you to your edge so that you can continuously be greater, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah,
because
I would say one thing too, at the beginning of 2020, you know, I kind of stopped the whole like New Year's resolutions thing, because I don't really understand why I have to wait. But around 2020, I made the decision that anything that scared me to death was exactly what I should be doing. Because I always, obviously, and it's a very, you know, metaphorically, on the other side of fear is all the things we want.
Right.
And the more I realized, the more I did that, the more I realized, like, yes, 100%, like, that's exactly what I needed. Even if I didn't think that that was something that I need to be doing, I was always pushing myself to that edge because it's scary. You know, public speaking, like that. That's one of the biggest things for me. And people would say, no, but you have conversation with people all the time. Like, there's no way. I'm like, yeah, because it's here. Like, you put me on a stage, I'm going to freeze. Like, I don't, you know, and I started doing these. I started doing lives, and that was kind of like, okay, I have a screen that kind of gives
like an in-between.
I have like a little bit of a, you know, curtain, you know. Right. But at the same time, I've gotten a lot more comfortable with it now to where, you know, I want to start doing it publicly, and I want to start being able to hold that space. But yeah, man, on the other side of fear is everything. So everything that scared me, I did it. And, you know, anytime I feel that just little inkling of like, oh man, I'm like, yep, that's what I got to do, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much, man, especially heading into the new year. A lot of people might be setting resolutions. So one thing that has particularly worked for me, so just to backtrack a little bit, 2018, I set a lot of resolutions that miraculously, knock on wood, I ended up keeping. So 2018, I was like, I'm going to meditate frequently. I'm going to wake up early, read more books, eat plant-based, like did all of those things. But then afterwards, it shifted to not necessarily action items, but more so a theme or intention that I could always fall back on, right? So for 2019, funny that you talk about fear, 2019, the theme was leaning into fear. So anything that I found was remotely uncomfortable, lean in. Like making music, that's when I really started it, because I was like, okay, I graduated from this highly prestigious college where all of my friends are consultants, lawyers, or doctors, and here I am putting out a song on SoundCloud. I know that they're going to be like, oh, Javi's just being a SoundCloud artist now. I knew that that conversation was going to go around. I saw it as potentially holding me back because it was the fear of what other people thought. And I said, fuck it, I'm going to lean in. And so that was just one example. Literally, I was looking for any little example in 2019, leaned into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then 2020, the theme was massive action. So in what ways can I take massive action? And just like looking for those little opportunities. With 2021 around the corner, the theme is really going to be letting go of expectations. Because anytime that I have some sort of expectations of how something is supposed to be or supposed to go, or man, this would be better if it had X, Y, or Z, it never ends up allowing me to fully be present in the moment and enjoy it for what it is, which is what happiness truly is at the end of the day. Like if you find yourself, Johnny, on a beach, you know, and you just finished like a quick design, you just got paid, and you're just like, all right, I got like maybe 3 hours until like a cacao ceremony. I'm just chilling on the beach with a book. And you think to yourself, like, man, literally nothing could be better about this. Like literally this is absolutely perfect. That's happiness. That's true happiness. And we all can accept that. Exactly. Which is beautiful. It didn't get there overnight, but it's one of those things that it's like when we can accept whatever is present for us fully, unconditionally, that is true happiness. Because you can take that same mentality and apply it at any other place, but as long as we're going, man, this would be better if I had, you know, this person with me, or if I had a blunt, or if I had a drink, or if I had whatever it is, it's always going to make the moment feel less than, and it's not going to allow us to be fully present. So I find that lately that's been coming up as a shadow, is like the expectations of how this should be. I did this, so it should be this, like cause and effect. But it doesn't always work that way. So it's understanding that I have to let go of these expectations. So that's going to be my theme for 2021. I invite anybody else to kind of think of the year and a theme, and that way just find all the areas where that theme is kind of applicable.
And I love that you kind of brought it back to being present, right? And that's my theme for 21. So my theme is being fully present. So it's like, you know, I'm out here and there's going to be a lot going on. And I really just want to be present, whether it's with an individual, with a place, with a moment. I want to be fully present. You know, I think that in this day and age where, you know, you get monkey talk, and there's just so many different things going on in your mind. And I have different businesses that I'm involved with, and, you know, I got to do this design, I got to talk to this client, and, you know, I got to plan for this. And it's like, there's going to be a time and space for that. And I'm going to be fully present with that when I have that. So when I got that hour of work, I'm fully here, nowhere else. Put my phone somewhere else. I'm here. I lock in. And then when I go outside to the pool, right to the pool, and I'm here. And it's just because I think through time, obviously, through all this time, right, we've been working on all these different areas, right? Like, you know, less expectations. I've been, you know, that's all kind of part of the process. There might be that one, there's that one like must, but like all these things tie into how we've gotten here right now, right? It's like I've been lowering my expectations for a long time, but do I sometimes have an expectation, right? Like it's like, but being fully present is like being fully present. So now if I catch myself doing it again, detaching from that and saying, okay, I'm here again. And so I was gonna say I'm just gonna adopt your pattern, because I was gonna take your 20 to the next one. So I'm like, you know what? Presence is where it's at. Like,
no, presence is where it's at, man. And it's funny. Yeah, it was great being on. We were on a call for anybody watching either now or later. We were on a call with Inner Light Warrior. Highly recommend you follow him. He's also known as Bam to us. But we were on a call with Bam, and he was talking about presence and curiosity and how they go hand in hand. And that has completely revolutionized like my approach to presence, because curiosity is that bridge that allows you to be more present. Because you can have a lot of things that are very pressing, like God forbid, you know, your mom has something and you're thinking about that, but you're also, you know, having a conversation. Of course, those thoughts come up, but if you tell yourself, don't think about that, that thought rises even more. But the difference is like you being completely focused on the person in front of you and being curious about what it is that they have to say, and that helps you tap into presence. Like Bam said, the most important person is the person talking to you. Like, Johnny, you're the most important person in the world right now to me. Like, nobody else is more important than you right now. And that's what allowed this conversation to flow so beautifully, and for us to really exchange our truth in such an amazing way, because we're not thinking about at 9:01 I have to go do this, and we're not thinking about oh man, I forgot I have to send that design to somebody. It's just like, we're here, you're curious as to what I have to say, I'm curious as to what you have to say, and as a result it flows beautifully and we're present.
And listen, I'm seeing all the messages come in and I haven't looked down once, because I want to be like right here. You know what I'm saying? But a part of me is like, shit, I want to read everything, you know. But like, honestly, like, you couldn't have said it best, and that's really where it really stemmed from, right? Like, Bam smacked it out of the park the other day on the call, and it was so impactful that I've shared it with numerous people already, and literally have drawn tears from that very statement of just giving them the example and the whole nine. And it was just, it's been incredible, because even when I eat now, you know, like I'm fully present with my food, it tastes better.
Yeah, you know? It does.
It's the same thing with our brother Joe Pavone. Like, you know, when he did his water therapy thing, like when we were in our retreat, I was crying, bro. I was blown away.
Yeah, it was wild.
I was connected to water, you know. But it's just being fully present, you know. So I want that, and I think that more than anything, not only for myself, but especially in reality, really, the food deserves it, because if it's an animal in which suffered what went through, and now I can't even give it its, you know, own like
proper
appreciation, then why even kill the animal? Like, if I can't even do that, you know. So it's like, and the same thing with a person. If they're taking their time to just give me that moment, then why am I not going to do that in return? So it's
exactly
for sure.
Yeah. And that's it, man. That's really it. Being present is the way to manage that multidimensionality. Because whether you're doing something creative, something to pay the bills, something that'll pay off in the future, when you are 100% present with that, everything will work out magically. So I think we ended on the perfect note, right on time as well. So if there's any last burning questions, please drop them now. But If not, Johnny, I want to thank you for the time, brother. Thank you for taking the time to join on the High Vibe Live. It has been long overdue.
Thank you for having me, bro. It honestly is an honor. You know, I need to do these more. I'm gonna start my own and throw you on there real fast. I know we got a ton of things to talk about, but
Yeah.
it's been honestly a pleasure to just hold this space with you and talk about these things. Thank you for letting me share my story, and I love you, brother. And
Yeah.
talk soon for sure. Thank you
I
again.
love you too, my man. I love you too. So lastly, if somebody wants to work with you, you know, what do you offer? How can they get in contact with you? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So you could find me at Split Dreams with a Z, so SPLITDREAMZ, on Instagram, on Facebook. It's always the same handle. If you go onto my Instagram, I have a link tree which will give you all the different things in which I'm affiliated with at the moment and what I'm working on, and then we can go ahead and set it up from there.
Sounds good, brother. Sounds good. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Johnny, I love you, bro.
Love you, bro.
Have a Merry Christmas. And let's get this growth. The Christmas.
I love it.
All right, let's get it. Let's get this growth. Peace.
All right, bro. Later.